Thanks for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast. My name is Steven Jodarand.
And my name is Jake Watroba.
And listeners, on today's episode, David Beckham's club is in the news again, a footballer storms the stands, and Matt Doyle from MLSsoccer.com joins us to chat all things MLS.
Listeners, if you haven't done so, please make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at UncSamSoccerPod. Please send in your feedback and thoughts. We always enjoy hearing from you. Now, let's get to today's show. What's going on, Steven? How you doing?
Hey, you a little more nervous about the coronavirus after the news from Italy? That you sent me a text message about the coronavirus, Jake. And what was in that text message?
I believe it said they are every match is going to be behind closed doors for the next month.
Told you it's a worrying thing. In Switzerland, they canceled several weeks of soccer games, just outright canceled.
The boogeyman. I'm not afraid of the boogeyman.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
All I'm saying is pay attention to the news. You don't need to go freaking build a bomb shelter. But just pay attention. Wash your hands. And
you should wash your hands regardless of if there's a a mass breakout.
Yeah,
of a disease.
especially all those disgusting people who don't wash their hands after using the bathroom.
It shouldn't take a worldwide viral outbreak of this disease or virus or whatever you want to call it for people to wash their hands. If you go to the bathroom, you should just wash your hands.
Did you see in China? It's a TikTok of people of not wanting to shake hands with people. So do you see how they're like introducing each other?
Elbows, I'm guessing. I don't know how
they're foot taps.
That's okay. Here for people who are so concerned about coronavirus that go out and wear the surgical mask around their face. If you are that afraid that you are wearing a surgical mask, maybe you just shouldn't leave the house.
Oh boy.
I'm just saying. I saw it last night at a bar. I thought, okay, if you are that concerned,
wait. Somebody wore a mask to the bar?
Yes, someone was wearing a surgical mask at the bar. Every
time you sip your beer, your wine, your liquor, you have to remove the mask.
I guess, or maybe they're the sober driver. I don't know. I saw it last night. We're recording this on a Wednesday. Saw it last night, and I just thought, if you're so concerned about it, maybe you don't go out in public with large gatherings of people.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we don't know the entire situation, but that's a bit odd. And Jake, let's get into it. There is some interesting and fun news midweek, as we were kind of just going through the headlines. Quite a bit of some hot news.
There is rather, and I wanted to get your take on this because you're the resident Swiss men's national team fan on this podcast. Switzerland drew into a group with Spain, Germany, and Ukraine in the Nations League. Are you nervous? Are you excited? How are we feeling about going up against Spain, Germany, and Ukraine?
I'm very nervous, but this is the beauty of this competition. I know everybody, when it first came out, we kind of ragged on it, but this is fantastic. This is iron grinding up against iron, the best teams in Europe competing for not a significant trophy, but still Cristiano Ronaldo has lifted this trophy. There is now some sort of prestigious sentiment associated with this tournament, with this competition. It's going to make teams better. It's going to leave behind your United States, Jake. You have to figure out a Nations League concept with CONMEBOL. If not, the United States, are going to be left behind.
You don't think playing against teams like Haiti or Cuba is going to make the U.S. better? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree actually with you.
The other groups, I just want to mention the other groups: Holland, Italy, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Poland. That's Group A1. Group A2 is England, Belgium, Denmark, Iceland. Group A3 is Portugal, France, Sweden, Croatia, and then the group of death is A4, which is composed of Switzerland, Spain, Ukraine, and Germany. So lots of juice there. Can't wait. I'm genuinely excited for the games.
Now, will they be played with the coronavirus
outbreak? We have to worry about the European Championships first. And the last thing I saw about the Olympics is they might postpone an entire year.
I didn't see that. I thought I just saw they were gonna just outright just cancel it. Screw it. We'll go to 2024.
Well,
or whatever. 2024. Yeah, screw it.
I didn't see that.
We'll wait until then. Maybe yours is more recent. I'm not sure. I also don't really care that much for the Olympics, so it doesn't. At least the Summer Olympics.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, Jake. Monterrey files complaint with FIFA against David Beckham and Inter Miami. Reading from ESPN, quote, "The complaint stems from last month's prolonged transfer saga that concluded when Pizarro joined the MLS expansion side, co-owned by David Beckham. Monterrey claimed that Miami broke FIFA rules when Beckham enticed Pizarro to join the club via video calls while he was still under contract with the Mexican club," end quote. So this sounds like tampering. And don't forget, Inter Miami faces name change after legal battle with Internacional. Like, welcome to Major League Soccer, David Beckham. You cannot do whatever you want.
I'm impressed that you called Inter Milan Internacional, by the way. I actually can't say it the Italian way. I can only say it the Spanish the Spanish way. Just hat tip to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Inter Miami is kind of in a way, they're a little bit of a dumpster fire with the way they're in the headlines for the wrong reasons, right?
Right? Yeah. It's a strange dumpster fire because they put a stadium together and it's not ugly. Okay, I like the pink, but and the white. It's also I like their kits.
45 minutes outside of Miami, though.
Okay,
that's kind of the issue with it.
Sure, I like off white with the pink. I think that looked pretty good against LAFC. I wish they should have just gone all out pink. They should have just been the pink club because I would definitely buy a jersey with Inter Miami on it. David Beckham, he's a superstar. He's a global superstar, not only in the sport, but just as an icon. But then you have Inter Miami, and it's just it's a strange dumpster fire you got down there.
Yeah, and it's strange is such a good word because whether it's 6 months or a year from now, they're probably going to land a megastar too. So we're going to forget about all these hiccups or road bumps, if you will, for this club when they go and land. I don't want to say Messi or Ronaldo, but they're going to get a star. They're going to get somebody bigger than Pizarro. That's not the marquee signing. There's somebody bigger.
What would you rename Miami if they lose this legal battle with Inter?
Why not just call? If you can figure out a way to not get sued for calling it Vice City FC, that's what I would do.
Why always the city? Why don't you say Vice FC or Vice United?
No, I don't know. Just or call it you can't call it Miami Vice FC. But I don't know. I don't know. Vice City sounds right. I think that's a Grand Theft Auto reference or something like that. But something like that. I don't know. Maybe call it Atletico Miami or something like that if you want to keep it.
Oh, I like that.
European.
That has a sexy name, Atletico Miami.
Deportivo Miami or something like that.
Yeah, but then you lose. I guarantee you'd be sued over that too. What's the difference between Atletico Miami and Internacional Miami? I mean,
Well, it's Atletico Bilbao, Atletico Madrid. I don't think you could get sued over Atletico like you will with Inter.
Maybe. Hey, Timmy Howard, 40 years old, comes back out of retirement to play for the club he co-owns, Memphis 901 in the USL Championship. Since my retirement in October, my obsession for football has grown, he said. The desire to win continues to drive me. I love to play and I love to compete. This gives me the opportunity to do both.
PR move. That's what it feels like, doesn't it?
Maybe. We'll see. All right, lastly, the most exciting news I had all week.
The Chicago Fire announced earlier this week that NBC's Arlo White, Tony Meola, and Tyler Terrans are set to commentate 24 Chicago Fire matches this season. Now, Steven, pre-show we talked about this. You are very excited about Arlo White.
Hell yeah. This is fantastic.
Commentating
Love
Chicago
it.
Fire.
This is great. I'm watching every Chicago Fire game with Arlo White.
This is your Tony Romo like the thing you were talking about.
This is fantastic. This is a great move from Chicago Fire. This is press. This is plub. This is good press. This is going to attract eyes and ears. Why? Because Arlo White is the soccer guy regarding the Premier League here in the United States. You are familiar with his voice. You know what you're going to get. Commentators don't necessarily sway a lot of people when it comes to watching, but it does pull you in more. Think about it. If you're watching the NFL and you had Tony Romo versus Joe Slope from whatever network, you're more inclined to watch Tony Romo calling a neutral site game that you have no interest in the players. You don't play fantasy football, but because it's Tony Romo, you are intrigued to hear him call the game. Why? Because you learn from him. Now, Arlo White is not the color commentator, but still, you like what Arlo White brings to the table. Like
you said, his voice is synonymous with soccer in America, which is kind of ironic because he doesn't really call American soccer. He's the Premier League. But, yeah, he has that voice. You hear it, and it just feels like, hey, big-time soccer's here. Arlo White's on the call. So I'm excited about it, too. Hopefully they are on ESPN Plus quite a bit.
Aren't they all on ESPN Plus, apart from the national televised games?
Well, I'm not sure how ESPN. Well, you might get the other team's broadcast crew, so I'm not sure how they determine that. But hopefully, we get a lot of Arlo White. Coming up next, we are joined by Matt Doyle of MLSsoccer.com. We're going to talk all things MLS.
You know him. It's Matt Doyle from MLSsoccer.com. You can follow him at MattDoyle76. Matt, how are you doing? Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, guys. To be on. 1
week in MLS, and what is your biggest takeaway, or what is your overreaction from the opening weekend, this past weekend?
I mean, it's two different things, right? The biggest takeaway is that it feels like Atlanta's season ended. They are not contenders without Joseph Martinez. I question whether they're even going to be a playoff team without Joseph Martinez, which I guess maybe could be the overreaction. But if you think about what happened to this group last year, they were kind of miserable through the first half of the season. And it looked like the team was falling apart. And then Joseph said, screw this. And he picked them up and put them on his shoulders and scored in 15 straight games. The man scored in 15 straight games. And there's no replacing that. Adam John's a nice USL player, but the gap between nice USL player and Joseph Martinez is massive. And beyond that, it's just like he's the heart and the soul and the leadership and the toughness of Atlanta United. This is they've lost Tata Martino, who is a world-class coach, and that was a huge bump for them. And they sold Miguel Almiron, who you see what he's doing now in the Premier League, and that's a huge test for a club to replace a player like that. This is bigger than either of those things. A week into the season, how do you replace the best forward in MLS history? With everything else that's happened in week one, it was a great week one, frankly, that overshadows all of it.
So Matt, do you foresee them addressing the striker position before the window closes in a few weeks here?
I mean, at the very least, they'll add some sort of depth behind Adam John, or maybe someone who could, challenge him and beat him out for the job. It's not clear how much cap space they have. They're committed to, it seems like they're committed to signing Jurgen Damm, who's not going to be cheap this summer, and Damm is a right wing back. So I'm not sure what kind of flexibility they have. But remember, last year, the Galaxy lost a DP for the year in Roman Alessandrini, and they were still able to go out and get Christian Pavone on a non-DP deal. And the key to that was, okay, he's a $20 million player, but they got him on a free loan because Boca Juniors just wanted to be rid of him. And all that LA was on the hook for was his salary, which is, I think, about $700,000 a year. Between their cap space and their allocation money, they were able to fit Christian Pavone onto that team. Now, maybe Atlanta have some sort of ability to do that. The question is, who would it be? And whoever it is, there's almost zero chance it's going to be as good a player as Joseph Martinez is.
So we all know Atlanta going into the season was one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, but now that Atlanta loses the best player in Major League Soccer at the moment, this opens up the Eastern Conference. So what teams do you reckon could build some momentum here in the early part of the season now that Atlanta's down their star player?
I think whether or not Joseph was going to be there, it was going to be kind of a race at the top of the Eastern Conference. I have, Toronto up there as well, especially because they don't have to worry about CCL to start the season. NYCFC, even though they do have CCL, they brought back their top 13 or 14 players from last year, and they added a couple of nice pieces as well. This is a 64-point team. So, they should be there as well. Columbus has an argument. Those are probably the ones besides Atlanta, and certainly all three of those teams now I have ahead of Atlanta, maybe a couple others as well. But, there are questions. With Toronto, it's always going to be injury and health. Josie Altidore never plays more than 2,000 minutes. Michael Bradley's already out. Their other DP is already out. So, with NYCFC, they have CCL. They also have a new manager. You don't know if Ronnie Dyler's tactics are going to stand up. So it does kind of leave everything open. And, hey, that's kind of the nature of MLS. It's a league full of surprises.
Yeah, no kidding. I think you're spot on with NYCFC. I mean, historically, right, the several seasons they've been in the league, they've always performed well in the regular season. Obviously, it's the playoffs performance that has been really the big problem. But what about Montreal and New England? They played each other in the opening weekend. Thierry Henry got off to a decent start. They got through the first round with the CONCACAF Champions League. They beat New England, a team that did spend some money in the offseason, behind Bruce Arena, one of the best coaches in Major League Soccer history. Let's begin with Montreal. Thierry Henry's doing well, and then they go out this past week and they sign Victor Wanyama from Tottenham to a DP deal. What's the ceiling with this Impact team?
I still don't think it's very high. I still think that they're at a talent deficit in most of these games, and Henry has done a good job of mitigating that by playing, I guess whatever we'll call it, a French Quebecois version of Catenaccio, putting a lot of numbers behind the ball, 5 at the back, and playing super direct, using they have some great athletes on the wings and in attack. So he's done well with that. And Wanyama, look, we all know his resume. He was a very, very good EPL player for a good long while, but there are massive questions about his knees. You don't know if he could cover any sort of ground like he used to. And if that's the case, then how effective is he going to be in Major League Soccer? I think that's a very open question. It seems to me like a very risky signing. I mean, I understand why they did it, but there's some significant downside here. So to me, look, Henry's done the right thing, but this isn't a one-year fix with this team. or honestly the club. Like the Montreal has been chop and change and lacking an identity their entire MLS existence. They got to get out of his way for 3 or 4 years and say, fix us, give us something to build, give us some bedrock foundation, and we can go from there.
So, Matt, it sounds like you think that at best this Montreal team is maybe a 6th or a 7th seed in the Eastern Conference.
At best, yeah. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but, strange things can happen.
Now, I guess another team I want to talk about here, and this is probably an overreaction. It's week 1, match day 1 here, so take a lot of this with a grain of salt. But the Portland Timbers did not look they didn't look great defensively Sunday night at home against Minnesota United. What did you make of their performance, and should Timbers fans be worried one weekend?
You don't get worried off of 1 week, even when, to be frank, it was a 6-pointer at home and they lost it. But I think the worry stems from this seemed like a continuation of how the Timbers played at home at the end of last year, and they don't seem to have new ideas. They went out and they spent $12 million on new players this offseason, and they're still just banging it, like sending both fullbacks way upfield and banging in and cross after cross after cross, leaving themselves completely exposed on the counterattack. It wasn't great, but over the years, this is what Portland has tended to do. They come out and they say, we're going to play, exciting front foot possession attacking soccer. And after 6 weeks, they realize they can't do it. And they just drop back into being a counterattacking team. And that is usually enough for them to make the playoffs. So I don't think it's panic time yet, but I don't think there's much reason to hold out much hope that they're suddenly going to figure out how to be an attractive possession team. To me, this is like just inevitable. They're going to go back to being a counterattacking team.
And Matt, let's talk a little CONCACAF Champions League here. Is this the year? Is this the year MLS finally gets over the hump? I don't want to do the cliche. Has MLS closed the gap on League MX? I don't want to do that. I guess we'll leave that cliche out. But is this the year that MLS finally gets over the hump?
I don't think so. Maybe if Joseph hadn't gotten hurt, I was going to pick Atlanta to beat Club America. And if that had happened, then you have enough talent in the mix with them and LAFC and NYCFC to say, okay, you know what, this might be the year. But the Liga MX teams are still favored. It's just how it's going to be until MLS teams consistently prove otherwise. LAFC definitely have a chance. Nobody would be shocked if they beat Cruz Azul. If they beat Cruz Azul, they meet Club America most likely in the semifinals. Nobody would be shocked if they beat Club America. If they make the finals, it's likely Tigres, maybe NYCFC. But if it's Tigres, okay, one-off, nobody would be that shocked if LAFC beat Tigres. But we're talking about this team going on a run where they beat León, Cruz Azul, Club America, and Tigres back to back to back to back. That's insane. That is, if they do that, then they will be allowed to crow about it till the end of days. They have the talent to do it, but it just seems so unlikely to me. So I will predict no. This is not the year it happens for an MLS team.
Out of all the clubs remaining, I know LAFC have the biggest mountain to climb, but they have the talent to do so. And it would be kind of an LAFC thing to do right off the bad voodoo they got in the playoffs last year and go out and do something that no MLS team has done. And why not Bob Bradley put a chip on Carlos Vela to go out there and just, prove it even further to everybody in North America and Europe and whatever you want to say to it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I'm sure that is a button that Bob is trying to push. And given how Vela played in that second leg against León and how he, the goal he scored this weekend against Miami, which was obscene, he has the talent to do it. And Diego Rossi's been very good as well. And I recognize his talent, but I haven't always been the biggest Diego Rossi fan. early in the season, he looks to have turned a corner to me in terms of how much responsibility he's taking on the field in terms of like being brave about taking the ball in tough spots and working for his teammates. They can do it, but again, it's just such a like you've heard that gauntlet of teams they would have to beat. If they do, then there's no question they are the greatest team in MLS history. And I'm sure that is something that Bob has mentioned to them as well.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, a lot of pressure, I guess, on LAFC. They're kind of almost feels like they're carrying the weight of MLS in this next round of CONCACAF Champions League. Because I think, like we've stated, there's a good chance that LAFC might be the last team or the last MLS team standing here after this next round is all said and done. Although I do think it's crazy. One last thought here before we let you go here. I do think it's crazy that there's also like an outside chance too that the Impact could also just be the last remaining MLS team, just given the other 3 matchups, and that they get to play Olympia while everybody else gets to face these Liga MX teams. I think 2 or 3 weeks from now we could be talking, okay, can Montreal Impact run a table here and win a CONCACAF Champions League? Which is, like I said, it's funny to me. But Matt, thanks again for joining us tonight. Please tell our listeners where we can find your work and where we can follow you on Twitter.
Yeah, MLSsoccer.com for complete coverage of everything. And on Twitter, it's at MattDoyle76. Feel free to shout at me about anything, and I'll mute liberally. So.
Great. Matt, have a great night. Thanks again.
Take care, guys. It was a pleasure being on.
Thanks again to Matt Doyle. Please check out what he's got on Twitter at MLSsoccer.com. His coverage is great. His insights are fantastic. Jake, I do disagree. I think he's underselling Montreal just a little bit. I think Thierry Henry is a decent selling point. Maybe the players have a little bit of life underneath them. And signing somebody like a Victor Wanyama, who has a pretty prestigious career, obviously playing at Tottenham, was with a club that just made the Champions League final. It's a solid move. It gets the eyeballs in the locker room. I think it puts everybody in that Montreal locker room. There's a little more excitement when you show up to work every morning, I think. And knowing that you have a coach like Thierry Henry, bringing in the players that they brought in, I think Montreal could be a playoff team. I think they could really sneak into that 6 or 7 seed. I also wonder what their CONCACAF Champions League record will be.
Well, like I said, I mean, there's a good chance they're the last remaining MLS team when this next round is all said and done. I tend to agree with you. I do think that he is slightly underselling them. Not so much. Like when he says 6, 7 is like the seeding for them is the ceiling. I think it's maybe a little bit higher. I think it's maybe the 5th seed. Like again, you're splitting hairs here at this point. If you're me, I think maybe the 5th seed is probably their ceiling. I also wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about Montreal 6 months from now, and it's like, hey, they're 12th in the East, and I'd go, yeah, well, it's Montreal Impact.
Well,
so,
I mean, Thierry Henry could have the FU award mid-season and then collapse. Like,
he could do his best Monaco. He could do his best Thierry Henry at Monaco impression.
Or no, Brad Friedel at New England type deal. Decent start, momentum, and then just fall into a pit of losses.
Oblivion.
Just ugliness. Anyway, listeners, we want to get to one last thing, and it's regarding Tottenham player Eric Dyer, who stormed the stands following Spurs FA Cup exit. I'm reading from Goal.com. Jose Mourinho has criticized Eric Dyer after the Tottenham player confronted a fan because of a family insult during Spurs FA Cup 5th round exit to Norwich. Now, Jake, we do have audio, and I want to quickly play.
Eric Doyle! Eric Doyle! Relax. Eric, relax.
I mean, this is just madness. This is nuts. Listeners, just go watch the video. He storms up, and fans are just confused by it. Like, holy crap, that's Eric Dyer.
I'm confused about it because the person he's confronting is a good 20 to 30 rows up. So how did he know this fan or this person or whoever is yelling obscenities at me and my family while he's on the field? And how did he identify that person and all that stuff? It's confusing to me.
So when
it also has nothing on Ron Artest and Malice in the Palace. I'm just saying that as well.
I was just gonna bring that up. Jose Mourinho explained that his player was emotional during the post-match interview. I've been reading a few articles. I think we'll get more details as the hours roll along. We're recording this Wednesday evening, so the news is still rather fresh. But I did see on Twitter, now take this with a massive grain of salt, Jose Mourinho, I think, went to the board and asked whether or not, or asked them to suspend Eric Dyer for one match, but not both matches, and they have matches in the Premier League and then Champions League. So that's a bit strange. If I were Jose Mourinho, I'd just suspend him for the Premier League game and then, ask for forgiveness later and see if you can get him to play for the Champions League game. But that was just something that was on Twitter that I saw. So who knows? But my goodness, he apparently said the family was there. His younger brother wasn't happy with the situation. I don't know. This seems a lot of he said, she said type stuff, and I don't know how much information I'm going to get out in the following days.
Yeah, it's a little confusing to me. Like I said, there are things about it that are confusing to me. Like, how is he hearing anything from somebody 30 rows up in the stands, and how is he able to identify them? And unless they're sitting next to his family, and that's how, I'm not sure. But like I said, a little bit reminiscent of Ron Artest and Malice at the Palace. A lot less violent than Ron Artest at Malice in the Palace. But, it'll be interesting to see how this whole thing unfolds here as we get more information as it comes out in the coming days.
Alrighty, we'll see what happens. This was a fascinating story to see unfold live, Jake, as I'm sitting at my office chair reading the news. And some strange stuff happening in England. Tottenham bowing out of the FA Cup. Not the English team's looking terrible in the Champions League. And then Liverpool losing in the FA Cup, losing their perfect season in the Premier League, and then a few weeks ago losing the Atletico in the Champions League.
They've lost 3 of their last 4, if I'm not mistaken.
And since that letter sent by that little boy demanding that Liverpool lose a little more. And then,
yep.
Wow, crazy stuff. Anyway, listeners, hit that subscribe button. Leave us a 5-star review. Follow us at UncSam Soccer Pod. Send in your thoughts, your comments. We'll be back Monday morning. No live show Sunday, but we'll be back Monday morning with another fantastic episode covering the latest in American soccer. Until next time.